that kind of sucks. I'm done, October 15th. And I'm like, there are many years I would have prayed for this to happen. So like, right. I'm gonna take it.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many bucks I've shot while I'm in the process of thinking about what am I going to do in rifle season.
I was like, well, if I throw a mic on, then I can help others the way that these people have all helped me.
Born in the heart of the Pennsylvania deer camp, with the help of experts, friends, and local legends, we bring you valuable knowledge and powerful stories for your hunting adventures. Welcome to the East Meets West Hunt Podcast with your host, Beau Martonik.
All right, we're back. Took a little break here, but again, joined with my cousin Mason, Uncle Mike, and my dad. And I wanted to transition a little. We were talking about, late October and going into that, but getting into November a little bit here. I mean, I feel like in recent years, the more I've been able to have time off to be able to hunt, I've really liked late October if the weather is right. Mm-hmm. But obviously November is such a magical time that you have with the rut coming in and getting through that. And I feel like it can be a really magical time, but it also can be some of the slowest hunts that you could have all year. And I've always put it as like it's 99% silence and 1% chaos is kind of what the rut looks like. And so just so happen to say that, that you guys have tags coming into that, first, second, week of November there. What do you kind of think about that?
If you can find a hot doe that they're chasing, you're going to have action, a lot of action, like you said. But if you're in an area where nothing's really going on, it's going to be slow for you. So it's trying to find that area that is tore up, I guess. Maybe covering some ground, until you find a hot sign but I still hunt scrapes. I'll hunt scrapes pretty the whole way through, but like Uncle Mike was talking earlier, I may shift to the downwind side of scrapes now because I see bucks that time of the year, not necessarily going to the scrape and working it, but being downwind of them, skirting them.
Yeah.
So I may shift my setup a little bit off of that, but and once again, they're community scrapes because those are the travel areas, and if there is a doe that's coming in that she's traveling through there, the bucks are going to be coming through, and also doe bedding areas where these these community scrapes are, concentrating on where. Okay, I know there's the doe's bed here, and here's this community scrape, and and maybe pick that one over, maybe some other ones.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and for me personally, when it comes to November, I feel like I end up. That's where I try to really key in on a specific area per se, and really try to like. Spend my time in there. It might not be the same tree, but spending time in an area versus jumping around a lot, because I feel like I scout so much, and we all do, that we have so many areas that we could go to where I feel like I need to even if I'm not going to only shoot one deer, I almost got to act like that's my plan just so I'm not super haywire kind of all over the place. That's me, how I look at it, and spending more time in those places and knowing that, yeah, I might get texts from all of you guys that you're having an incredible day and I'm having a slow day, but I need to kind of to wait it out and go through that a little bit. And that's been my rule. Every time I bounce around, I don't do nearly as good as when I spend more time in a particular area. And again, that doesn't mean moving trees all the time, or that doesn't mean staying in the same tree all the time. That might be bouncing 30 yards this way, 100 yards that way, and just kind of fine tuning what's going on. But I'm interested to hear about both, Mason and Uncle Mike, like kind of how you guys look at? Are you more mobile still at that time, hunting fresh sign, trying to get on it, or are you playing the long game with it and trying to put time into it?
I'd say, to me, I try not to think about it, because you can spin yourself in circles just trying to figure out what you can do. Just don't think about it as much. I try and be where the does are. I either want to be where the does are, or I want to be in a spot in between doe groups where I believe there's going to be a funnel, something that makes them travel through the X, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I just try and keep it simple. And if I'm not seeing what I'm looking for, I move the next day.
Okay, so you will
the first week in November, I think I bounce around a lot.
And then what about as you get into like that second? Because you've killed some of your biggest deer in November,
at the end of the second week. Yeah. And then I think there's a lot more luck in play, and you have just as good of a chance sitting in the same spot for a week as you do bouncing around. Because I have spots, right? That the second week in November there's going to be a hammer that walks through here, and it's just a matter of being there on the right day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I don't know. When I also the other last thing I want to say about like that portion of it, I think there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think you kind of got to cater to how you're able to hunt. Like I feel like I have a strong point in being patient, and I can wait things out and go do that. You bounce around a little bit more.
I go off a lot of historical data, especially that second week of November, when an area will heat up.
Yep.
And I've had real good encounters. I've had success doing that, and I've got burnt, a few times where it didn't work out. Just whether being a day late or whatever it may be. It's. But a lot of historical data, especially that second week of November for me, when them scrapes are really, when the mature bucks are out, the biggest of the big boys are on their feet in daylight, going through scrape lines, looking for those last doe that, because actually they say the peak, is November 12th, 14th? 15th?
In this area,
Yeah, so, leaving one doe, trying to find another one. You want to catch them. Those transition areas between bedding, definitely.
I believe those big bucks know where the does bed in their area. I mean, even like a younger 3-year-old. I've been watching in the stand, watching two different younger bucks, and a 3 or 4-year-old. But had a smaller, heavier, stubby rack. I didn't want to shoot him. As like he came in, he checked out the younger bucks, and then he beelined. I could see pretty far from the stand. He beelined at a diagonal up to this bench, and there's some hard transitions there, and he just straight lined it right to this bench where he knew does were bedded, and then he chased them all over the rest of the night.
Yeah.
So it's like he knew exactly where he wanted to go when he showed up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of big bucks, they're not going to follow like behind the does. They already know where they're going to be. They know where they're going to bed that day, so they're just going from one bedding spot to another. And then if you could find an area where there's over like five to 10 does bedded in one area, you get downwind of that, boy, that's dynamite.
Yeah.
Especially that first week in November. So.
Yeah, and the one thing from, I guess it was 2 years ago in the year prior, mostly when I hunted a lot through November and I was struggling to find on a deer. One thing I've noticed and this is specific to the areas that we're hunting, but the deer population has increased and there are more does than there has been in the 10 years ago. So I feel like it's harder for me to hunt for like those really older age class deer, to hunt those transition spots. I feel like they just go from doe to doe until that second to the third week, unless and that's where I've been relying so much on historical data of like, all right, and it might be either, okay, I've seen chasing going on here, I know a doe comes in this area, or it's just trail camera data of bucks showing up on there. But it's hard to go by trail camera data during November, but what I mean by that is if you see them, yeah, that's obviously confirmation, but that doesn't always mean that there's not activity going on there, because some of my best days in the stand have been when my camera is there and none of those deer went in front of that trail camera.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a caveat I have with some of that historical data there. But my whole point of that was like the first week in November, I've been playing more downwind of specific doe groups, more so than those transitions. And once you get into that second and even into that third week, even some of those older deer might be struggling to find does at that point, and now they're covering more ground.
Yeah, I find a lot of times too, like them cold mornings, them does love them south facing slopes. They love that sun, so that, typically works really well too.
Yeah.
And they're going to be there. You're downwind of them. You need a, whatever, east wind or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they'll get there, say 8:30, 9 o'clock. They'll mill around, bed down, and it's hour later. There might be some smaller bucks harassing them here and there, but 10:30, here comes Mr. Big Buck.
Yeah.
He knows they're there. He already knows that. So,
yeah. Are you an all-day sit guy?
I do probably a handful a year, but no, I it's tough to sit all day. But if I have, if I think the time's right, yeah, absolutely, I'll be there all day.
So if you're not sitting all day, because I know that you save up your vacation from work to take off basically most of the rut. How are you kind of breaking that up, or is there any thoughts in that?
Yeah, some thoughts, or some spots I just can't get in the morning if I'm getting busted. There's no way I can. I've tried it. It doesn't work. I'm getting busted. Then I find them spots I go in later in the day, so sit somewhere else in the morning, hit them spots in the afternoon, and I found, really, not getting busted. I'm getting in clean. Yep. I'm having good hunts, So some, just trial and error. Some more, sometimes you find a spot is really good for the mornings, and other times it's not good access getting in at all. Some are more set up for an evening. So,
yeah, no, that I mean, and I've picked up on that, from talking to you through the years, and then even on this episode, that access is a huge point in everything you're doing, and even during the rut, you're paying attention to access a lot.
I am, but I mean, they're sometimes I'll roll the dice, and I know I don't have good access.
Yeah, you got to take risks.
And I know the deer could bust me, but. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm going to give one, and then that's a day I might do an all-day sit, because I know I got one chance. I'm going to go in there in the morning. I'm going to sit there all day. Then I really think that not so much the bucks are on to me, maybe the does are on to me.
Yep.
So
my thought has always been, like, with a specific doe bedding area, if I'm going in there, because there was one spot I got a shot on a deer. It didn't work out a few years ago, but where I knew to get in there that there was a good chance I was going to blow out some does, but I was like, the bucks don't know that I blew them out yet, right, thinking that they're going to come in later in the morning, coming through, checking there, and that's what I was playing off of to go do it. It did work out, but I feel like when it comes to the rut a little bit, you kind of we've talked about this a lot, Mason, of like sometimes it's you kind of got to roll it, especially if you're not hunting. We're talking about late October. You're hunting right on, say you think a buck might be bedded within 100 yards of you. That's a little different than hunting an area where you're trying to hunt a buck that's trying to find a doe coming through.
Yeah, I actually had, this is 20-some years ago, I had a situation where I was hunting. It was it was probably middle of November. I know the season didn't go as long. It's probably November 10th, 11th, in that time frame, where I was hunting and some does were coming, feeding my way, just browsing, and I had probably 5 or 6 does in front of me. And it's getting to prime time, it's evening, and I'm thinking, boy, that buck got to show up soon. Well, the bucks are, sooner or later, they're going to get downwind of me. Well, they got downwind of me. One blows and they take off. Well, I got on my grunt tube, and I just started grunt. Well, here, a buck comes running in. He thought another buck was chasing them does.
And they were blowing at him.
Yeah. And I end up killing that buck, big 8-point. So it's, I'm not saying that works all the time.
Yeah.
It's something just if you blow some deer out, especially
it's not
those
the end of the
in the rut, get on that grunt tube, start grunting.
100% agree with that.
Yep.
I don't think blowing is the end of the world.
No.
In altogether. I think if there's been like a ton of pressure right there, it's happened multiple times, maybe it's a little different, but I think they get curious a little bit, and especially during a rut when a doe does that. Yeah. To me, it sounds like it's to a buck. It's like I know there's a doe there, right? Because I hear, and they're kind of a little bit. If you can get them a little bit where their brain's not working 100% correctly, then that seems to help. Yeah. But
and you got to imagine they blow at things other than humans too, right?
Yeah,
like coyotes or whatever, Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many times have you heard one way off? It's like there's no way they can be smelling me.
Yeah.
Wind's going this way. They're blowing over here. Unless it's another hunter in there, but
I've thought that before too until I got milkweed and it's like, oh, they are smelling me.
Yeah, that's that could definitely be true too. I don't know. It's just like that November time frame. I do feel like I do roll the dice more so if I feel like it's a good spot to be in. But I do like. And maybe, and I'm also using this because I've done it where I've done 2 weeks straight of all day sits. And I don't really want to ever do that again. If I have to, maybe I will. But I like the idea that you have, because there are places I know in the mornings that I struggle to get into without blowing out deer. Maybe I do go sit somewhere else in the morning. And for me, I find like that 1 to 3 is a dead zone time frame. I do not want to leave at noon. Me personally, I've had more activity right at that noon time frame. That if I in that early afternoon when it seems to be dead, maybe move a spot for the last 3 hours or so of daylight. But yeah, I don't know. That seems like it could be a decent option.
One of the other things too that I narrow down my spots. If I have multiple, I might have a dozen community scrapes that I have for different winds. And one of the other ways of eliminating some of them is looking at the when I get the fawns on photos, going back dating that 200 days and when it's just theorizing when they got bred and thinking that, okay, one of my target bucks is in this area. I got a fawn on, this date. You back it up that last week of October. It should be happening if she's still alive and comes in, within the same few days every year. So I may, if I have multiple setups for this wind, but I know this is going on at that particular area, then I'm going to go to that area and just, does it pay off? I think I've had action, but then other times it's maybe I should have chose a different stand. But I think the biggest thing is just having confidence in your set is 90% of it. If you go into a stand and you just this ain't going to work out, this and that, and you're probably not going to see nothing. But if you go in a stand expecting something to happen, it usually happens.
Yeah.
Because you're there for a reason. You have that confidence, and you got to have that too. And then you can do an all-day sit if you think you need to. But
I think if you don't have that confidence, you take shortcuts and you make mistakes, and it comes back full circle to what we just talked about at the beginning of this podcast with you. Like you said, you took, I can't remember how much time you said you took, but you really took your time to make sure you got up that noisy cherry tree, right? If you didn't have confidence, you're gonna have a good afternoon. You're not going to take that time.
No.
And I was guilty of that in my teenage years, right? But as you start experiencing success, it's been the same thing with me starting to hunt whitetails here in Pennsylvania to hunting the West. It's like once you start experiencing that success, you know what's possible, and you just keep the ball rolling, and you continue to make you have discipline to make the right decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, it's hard to, if you say you hadn't had that success before, you're hunting a new area, or maybe you're new to hunting or whatever it might be, and you don't have that. But I can promise you, I know this from being around all you guys that are very consistently successful. It's not taking those shortcuts and whatever it is to be able to do that. And like you said, sometimes, do we roll the dice with the wind a little bit of knowing that, it's not going to be perfect all day. Yeah, that might happen then, or, rolling the dice on a few of those things. Yes. But in the things that you can control, that you're doing everything that you can to make that. And I think controlling the controllables and letting it go. And I learned that a lot from you, Mason, of like, sometimes, I know that I can overthink things when I go in to do something, and I feel like you do a good job, at least from the outside looking in, of not overthinking it all the time. Like, you control what you can control, and then understand that there's some things that the dice has to roll your way a little bit. Yep.
Yeah, like a good date like November 6th or 7th, and we have the perfect weather day, I'm more apt to go to my best stand than I am to go to the stand with the perfect wind. You know what I mean? Because you have some winds where stuff happens so fast. You need a little bit of luck in your side, no matter what the situation is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember, what was it, in 23 when I was driving to West Virginia to go hunt. At this point, it was like November 14th. I hadn't shot a deer in Pennsylvania. That was the year that I didn't shoot a deer in Pennsylvania. That ended up not after that. But I'm going down, I'm kind of struggling. You hadn't shot a deer yet, and you're talking to me on the phone. We're going back and forth, and you were trying to figure out what you were going to do the next day. And just for both of you guys, Mason's like, he lays out the scenarios. He's like, what should I do? And I said, based on how you talk to me about these two setups you're looking at, what you need to do already. And he went in there and kills like a 10-year-old deer that was a goofy 9 or 8, the super heavy, just gnarly looking deer that next day. That and you don't know what's going to happen, but you had confidence in that spot, and it ended up paying off.
Yes, I'd say there's so much of the mental side that,
without a doubt.
Yeah, you just gotta, because if you're not in it mentally, it's like you get down a little bit early. There's nothing coming. I'm getting down. I'm cold. I'm gonna get down. But if you have confidence, it's like, I can make it another 10 minutes. 10 minutes goes by. Okay, I can make another 10 minutes, and you stay there until it happens, right?
Yeah,
it's just having the confidence is I would say one of the biggest things that's helped me through the years.
Yeah. Uncle Mike, what can you think of like a November rut hunt? What's one of the most memorable hunts that you've had that you can think of?
Some of the same kind of scenario. I'm sitting on a doe bedding area.
Yep.
Frosty morning, which I love. The does come, walking in probably 8:30, 9 o'clock. Filter in. Some of them are bedded down, or some other smaller bucks are coming around, sniffing around.
And how far off are you off this bedding area?
I'm probably about 40 yards, but if the bucks come cruising by, I got like a 20-yard trail. I got multiple places where the bucks got to go by me, and part of my thought process is too, if they're chasing, they're going to come by me too.
Yep.
And so and sure enough, especially like I said, if you only have 1 or 2 does, that's not, I don't think, not much is going to happen. You get 5 or more does, chances are one of them might be hot, and the bucks are going to be really interested. They know there's that group likes to bed there, and sure enough, here comes Mr. Big Boy, and starts chasing a doe around. And I have all the like, I know where, like, all my yardage in my head where I'm going to shoot. Like, this is 20, this is 30, this is 15, whatever, and he's going to bring that doe right around here. Well, sure enough, the doe comes by me at 20 yards, and I'm like, and I'm calm as can be, because in my head I played this all out. I know this is what's going to happen, and he's going to come right behind her. Well, she makes a left-hand turn, 90-degree turn. All of a sudden, he's going through stuff that you never think a deer could go through. I mean, he's jumping like 6 feet in the air and up and down. I'm just like, my plan just went to hell.
Panic sets in.
My plan went to hell. I went from like, okay, I got this, to holy, this is falling apart here. And I was falling apart. I literally fell apart. And he did stop. And I didn't think I'd even get a shot at him. He stopped at a spot I could get a shot. I pulled back, and I let one go. And I rushed the shot. I did everything wrong, and missed him clean. Thankfully, anyway. But that was a really big buck, and that one I think about a lot.
Those are the ones you remember the most.
yeah. So, so that was.
What was the date on that? Do you remember?
It was like November 3rd or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember exactly where I was when you called me that day, and what you said.
Yeah.
You're like, this is supposed to be the happiest day of my life.
Yeah. You go from the highest of highs to lowest of lows, and that was one of my lowest of lows. That was, you don't recover from that. You don't. It takes, it can mess you up for a couple of days before you finally get back on track, but it did. So.
And as sad as that is to hear that, Uncle Mike, I believe there's a bunch of people listening, and even myself at times, that when I feel like, I look at you, I look at Mason, I look at my dad, and it's like, it feels like it's just automatic that you guys are having done that. There's still mistakes that can happen and things that can rush and happen. I've come to learn that I've been around a lot of successful hunters, and nobody's perfect. Like, things happen and scenarios happen that can throw things off.
It seems like the older you get too, though, you forget the mistakes you made earlier, and you have to relearn them sometimes. I went through that a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I remember that too. I still had a tag, so you were texting me. Mason was tagged out. Instead of getting a call to go drag, you had to spill your sorrows to somebody.
I was the therapist that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a magical time of the year that's coming up, and just, I don't know, the other thing that I think about when it comes to especially again, you get in that second week, third week, if you still got vacation, you're off and you're hunting or whatever it might be, and you still have a tag in your pocket, things can kind of feel like, I don't know, at least for me, I feel like, even though like I'm enjoying it, I love everything to do, I feel kind of stressed of like, why is this not happening? Even though those days can be incredible days to be able to still have your tag in there, it feels like that, but enjoy it. And also I'd say, like, we are very lucky that we have a good group that we can have a text chain that, helps keeping everybody going, even if I'm having a slow day and, you all of a sudden you're like, I know Uncle Mike hasn't had action in a couple of days, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, just had a big buck come through. I'm like, all right, put phone in the pocket, alert. I gotta be ready. Something's coming by here too.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many bucks I've shot while I'm in the process of thinking about what am I going to do in rifle season. So honestly, I mean, it seems like that's the way it always happens.
You know what? I don't remember the last time Mason's had a rifle tag.
Me either.
But you're thinking about if that does happen. Yeah. that is funny that is funny, because those thoughts do go through your head. It was funny when I shot this deer here in front of me, I'm like, man, that kind of sucks. I'm done, October 15th. And I'm like, there are many years I would have prayed for this to happen. So like, I'm going to take it, because there's some grind. And Uncle Mike, you were saying beforehand, because the last few years, you've been shooting them in the first few days of hunting, haven't you, like your vacation time?
Yeah, first 2 to 3 days, 4 days. Yeah.
And you're like, I'm looking forward to a grind. I was like, yeah, we'll see if you'll be saying
yeah,
that.
you got to go in there with that mindset. It could, you're going to be grinding it out. So just take every day and, go to your best spot. You think you could make it happen. Yeah. And you keep doing that, and something good's going to happen too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think another thing that can throws me off is the weather. If you start getting hot weather, have you guys experienced? Do you have any examples of like, say, good hunts that have happened in hot weather? What you do when you have like those weeks? It seems like Novembers have been warm in the last 5 years, maybe longer. But
yeah, you helped me recover a buck one warm November day. I think that was that the first week or the end of the second week. It was warm for a couple of days, and it was very slow. And I thought I got to get down in the creek bottom. I got to get in these hemlock stands. There was a community scrape I had down there. I didn't have any real good bucks on camera that year, so I kind of was avoiding that because none of my target bucks were in that area. But just because of wanting some action, I didn't care if it was a shooter or not. I was ready to, and see if some of them other bucks moved in there. And sure enough, I went in there. I think I got in there maybe around 1, and at 3 o'clock I grunted a buck yet, and I could just hear his antlers tinkling and ended up shooting him. It wasn't my target buck, but it was one I was very happy with. And but that was an example where I had to adjust. And that was the only deer I seen that day in those couple hours. But I think I would have been. I should have probably moved in there sooner.
Yeah.
Because it was definitely, 15 degrees cooler in them hemlocks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember specifically 2020 and 2022 were years that were really hot during that time. You killed that big 8-point, that super heavy, long beamed one.
That was hot.
November 7th.
We doubled up that day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You got one that day, too.
Yeah, we did.
November 7th or 8th? What was that?
Do you remember what day
I think it was the 8th.
7th.
Was it the 7th?
Positive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was it? Because that was like a really hot time.
It was really hot, but it was a really cold morning.
Yeah.
It was really frosty.
Yeah.
But it heated up a lot that day. Did you guys both kill first thing in the morning?
Yeah.
Or?
I killed it first late.
Really?
Yep.
Mine was probably within a half hour, 45 minutes. So I think your action is going to be like right at first light. Mm-hmm. And especially when it's hot like that. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, okay, I do remember that now. That when you guys doubled up, because that was the first time I had a camera guy with me ever filming whitetail, and I remember I looked at the weather that week. I was like, man, I picked a bad week to have first time a hunt being filmed. But I do remember that.
Yeah, that was a slob you shot that day. Mm-hmm. I was feeling pretty good about the buck I just shot. Then Mason, I was like, oh my God.
He has a tendency to do that.
Yeah, he outstaged me again. So.
Yeah, he has a tendency to be able to do that. The creek bottom thing, 2022, that was that other year that I was struggling. It was super hot, and I wasn't even seeing a single deer. I hadn't seen a deer in 3 or 4 days, and all of a sudden, it was 75, 76 degrees. Mm-hmm. November 4th. It was my last day I could hunt before I was going out of state. And I was like, all right, I was like very set. I knew the spot I was in. Historical data was good, but things weren't lining up. There wasn't even any does around. It was hot. I was like, I need to make a change. And middle of the day, I end up driving to a whole different county and going to a spot in a creek bottom. Same type of deal where I got down there, just felt colder, just felt cooler down there. And that was close to, it wasn't last light, but it was right when the thermal switch happened that this buck came in. I ended up grunting him in, and he came up, and I shot him. He didn't hit the scrape, but he was closer to it. It was 12-yard shot for me to be able to shoot him. And it was like, it was pretty good. And like, I don't know if for me, if if you have like 1 or 2 days of warm weather, if I'm like, oh, I need to be, somewhere different. But I feel like you start getting 3, 4, 5 days of warmer weather. I think they want to find some cooler ground to be in during the day. I mean, the rut happens every year, no matter what. But and I've seen it before where I've went back to work and buddies of mine that stayed out hunting have killed great deer at 2:00 in the afternoon when it's 80 degrees. Like anything can happen. So it's just it's definitely a harder to have that confidence during that time.
Yeah, and I mean, just talking with our group, that's what really helps is knowing anything is possible during the rut too, especially November, the end of the first week, beginning of the second week in November. If it's 80 degrees, there's always a chance they could push a big buck could push a doe by you.
Yeah,
there's always that chance out there.
I mean, you put your winter coat on and then you go out when it's 80 out. I mean, you can move, but you're not gonna run like it was if it was only 20 out.
Yeah,
I think it slows them down. But you're right; anything can still happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd much rather be out there when it's 40 degrees than when it's 75. But the rut's a pretty magical time too.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I like how Mason says 40 degrees instead of frosty mornings, because up until recently you never had the clothing to stay down.
Yeah, I don't like being out there November 15th when it's a high of 27. That's terrible.
I will say you have a tendency to be able to grind it out no matter what. You might bitch and complain a little bit, but you still do it every time. Yeah. Uncle Mike, have you ever shot a buck like in that November, 11th through 18th time frame before?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I have. And typically it's been like they're chasing a doe by. Let me think of another scenario. I don't know. Besides that, just being in a transition area where you think they're going to be going from one hill to another hill or one group of does to another, trying to be in the middle there. Had good luck with that too, but yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, that November 14th when you shot stickers, I remember that. I remember that big, goofy, triple brow type buck that you shot. That was November 15th or 14th also? 14th also. Yeah, I feel like those days can be super good too. It's just it gets harder to be in the game, especially if you're lucky enough to have time off and you've been hunting for a couple weeks at that point.
That's the time frame you start thinking about rifle season. But they're great dates.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Good.
That's when the biggest of the biggest are going to be on their feet in daylight if you're in the right spot.
And I think like Beau said, the areas with higher deer densities and more does, I do believe the biggest buck in the area is going doe from one doe to the next, locking down. And if they start coming out of their estrus cycles and there's a lot less does that are in the picture that are in heat in the middle of November than there is the first week of November, the second week of November. I think that's you got to capitalize on those bucks at that time.
Seems like that's the only time I'll actually get like a really good buck. Like I'll get them in one spot and I'll get them on a different camera, like a mile away or a mile and a half away. So he's traveling. He's
trying to find the last one. And like back to like what you said about having the group we have to bounce. Like I learned so much from you guys. It's unreal. And I'm sure you could probably say the same. Just texting back and forth. What are you seeing? And like you saying that that you're seeing bucks a mile or two from where you filmed them before out looking for a doe. It's like that sticks in my memory, and I've seen that, and I'm sure you've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
So just having the group to share information helps a lot too. We don't share too much, but we share concepts enough that helps each other.
Uncle Mike shares a lot with me.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, I tell you everything, bro.
Yeah, that's great. I learn a lot.
But in all seriousness, I've learned a lot from all you guys, and I think it's really helped me.
Yeah.
I learned using these podcasts. Some of the stuff that you guys are saying, it's like, definitely talking to somebody else that hunts, soak it in, because it can be some very valuable information.
As Johnny always says, you can learn from anybody too. Like he's like even people that don't have nearly as much. Mm-hmm. If you can listen to one story that they have, you can pick up on something. It's like, that might click with something that you've run into before, or been able to do it. But Dad, I did want to bring up like that November time frame. I feel like is when you've done most of your ground hunting and still hunting. Is that?
It's a mix. I lately though, last 3 or 4 years, I'm kind of migrated to the tree. But if the conditions are right, and if I am having some slow periods and I want to do some scouting and then definitely I'm on the ground. It's like instead of sitting in a tree and looking over 100 yards, I should be in that tree. Well, just creep over there, and just keep on moving. But it's a mix. Like I said, the older I get, though, the more I tend to migrate to the tree more than I am still hunting now.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that has to do with trying to identify your target deer too.
Yeah. So explain that. What is it? What do you mean by that? Explain trying to identify your target deer. You mean like being on the ground? You're not able to. Things happen fast, and you're not able to.
Yeah. No. I've shot a lot of my target bucks until I walked up to them. Good dozen. And I'm 100%, probably even more. Because when they're coming in, you run them in on the ground. You're looking at the frame, and it's just like, that's him, and then you shoot him and you get up there, and it's almost a disappointment, even though it's a great buck, based off the frame. It's just that, So in the tree, you can usually get better eyes on them and make a positive identification.
But it can be a really good strategy if you don't have a specific buck in mind.
No, if I didn't have if I wasn't hung up on some target bucks, I would probably spend 90% of my time on the ground. Because the action is, to me, it's more engaging. There's nothing better than grunting a buck in and shooting them at 5 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards. And, it's definitely more exciting for me.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. And Uncle Mike, do you do any of that?
I've tried, and I'm just not, I don't know what I do wrong, but I always mess it up, put it that way. So I like to be in a tree most of the time, whether saddle, hang on.
And you're probably the one that really converted me to going to a tree stand. That's all I used to do was still hunt.
I used to be in the tree and you'd be walking by me.
So you converted him.
It'd be, I just like, we got to communicate better so we're not messing each other up pretty much. So.
Well, that's because you park 2 miles away. I go out and I park, and it's like, okay, nobody's at this clear cut.
Yeah, true.
When you come in from 2 miles away, your access.
No, Joe does a very good job at that. And I've come close, I just can never seal the deal. So I stick to what I do, what I'm successful at, and that seems to be in a tree, So.
Yeah.
I will, I love the saddle for, just putting on your back and just going and looking for a sign. And, if you run into something, run along the way. It's kind of hunt your way in. So,
yeah, that's do you hunt on the ground much? I feel like you could because you're so successful out west doing it, but
I not as much as I used to. When I was younger, I did quite a bit, and kind of like he said, it's about the most exciting way you can hunt. But I would say the last 5-8 years, I've done very little of it. But it's something I've been thinking about this year, like not having a buck to go after. We get the rainy day. I'm still covering ground trying to find a buck to go after, right? So it's like I'm just looking for nice mature buck, whatever comes in.
Everyone that's listening to this, probably even by the time this comes out, Mason will have an absolute giant on the ground that he'll find and be able to target. They're like, all right, we've heard this story before, Mason.
Yeah, if I find something I'm super interested in, I probably won't do a ton of still hunting unless I have a mission to scout.
Yeah,
and ground hunting would be a secondary for me, just because I haven't had the same success as your dad has had, so I don't have that confidence to do that.
It's such a rush.
Yeah, it is a rush. I mean, I've had instances where it's worked out with smaller bucks, but never a big one. And if a lot of the times with the smaller bucks, I can't get shot, so I'm just not as good at it as he is, or I don't have the confidence to continue doing it.
There's a lot of days that you don't have encounters too. I mean, but when it works out, it's yeah.
I mean, the encounters I have had have been like some of the most memorable ones I've had.
Mm-hmm.
How would you? What are they doing wrong?
I don't know.
Like when I say that, I'm half joking, but as far as like how do you feel like you get the encounters where you get shot opportunities on the ground versus people that don't?
I think it's picking a clear cut. Most of them are in clear cuts, the right age of the clear cut.
Which is what?
You're probably that. Well, they come in and do secondary cuts with the junk trees now. But if you're getting into a fresh cut that's probably, I don't know, 5 to 9 years old.
So, like, what are you talking about as far as height?
Maybe
of like
older.
The new growth?
Yeah,
that would probably
it varies, and then it comes down to the logging trails that are through it. Because I'm not just busting through the brush.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking the skid trails and working my way through with the wind in my favor, or slightly off favor. But the trees are probably anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches in diameter. I'd say is probably my ideal clear cut, provided it isn't too thick. Just picking my way through and taking my time. There's no rush when you're doing that, and you can't rush. You pick a clear cut and say, if it takes me all day to work it through here, so be it. But you got to have that confidence though too that there's deer in there. And that usually comes with the clear cut you're picking and why you picked it. Based off of whether it's trail cam data or just prior encounters or sightings, whatever it may be. But once you get that confidence level, pick your entry based off the wind and just take your time making, if you make a noise, cover it with a grunt, but intentionally make noise, start busting stuff up and grunting aggressively. And then just sitting there waiting and be ready and give it a good 5 minutes after a grunt, if not even a little longer. I've got burnt where I waited and then I unclipped my release to grab my GPS to see where I was at, and all of a sudden I hear one crashing and I can't clip on, and he's coming straight at me. And it was a shooter, a beautiful frame buck, and he got probably 8 or 10 yards from me, and he probably just seen me shaking. And finally, when he turned around and started running away, I was able to clip on and draw back, but it was too late. It was But it just. Take your time going through and, make some noise intentionally and break like a chase. I've heard, I'm sure you guys have heard chases. They make a racket when they're chasing. Mm-hmm. So just, try to imitate a chase and grunt aggressively and wait, see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, and even like last year when I shot that deer on the ground going in that clear cut, I'm pretty sure I bumped them, or maybe he was just chasing her around after they were bedded down. But where I just was going through and I kept covering it with some grunts coming through like I was a deer because I knew the wind was good. And then eventually that doe and buck came back in, and I shot that deer at 10, 12 yards in that clear cut. All of you guys were there to help recover that one, to be able to remember it. But like, I don't know, ground hunting is a ton of fun to be able to do and get in there. I'll never forget when Kurt last year, my brother Kurt was getting into it, and he had a recurve that he's been hunting with, and he's had so many encounters, but he's like, Dad, I can't get these deer closer than 40 yards. What am I doing? And what you said to him, you're like, I don't know. Usually I have them at like 10 yards or in, so I don't know what you're doing wrong. Kurt's like, that's real helpful.
Yeah. Well, he was hunting a little bit more open.
He was hunting more open woods. Yeah, he was doing that.
He wasn't. There was a couple clear cuts he went into, but they were more mature. He was actually hunting clear cuts that were prime 15 years ago for me. But I think they did go and do some of the junk trees. So as far as getting rid of the unfavorable trees and letting the new seed trees up.
I think that could be a great tactic, though, when you think your buck's locked down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that in 2005, that what sealed it for me. I don't know if he was on a doe and I grunted him off, or if he was just bedded in there. But I was hunting a target buck, and I sat in a tree. I don't know if it was. It wasn't straight days, but it was like. Almost every day. It wasn't full day sits after work, weekends, whatever. But I don't know if it was 14 or 21 days I put on this buck. And finally it was like 10 o'clock, and it's already 55 degrees, going to be close to 70 that day. And I thought, you know what? I know he's in this clear cut. I suspect he's in this clear cut. I'm going to go in and after him. And I got down and circled around a little bit to get the wind in my favor and started working it, and 11:05 I shot him, grunting him in, crashing in on me.
Yeah, but, I remember that coming home from school, and you having that deer there. He's actually the one that's on that pedestal, or that tree back there.
The one,
he had the little 1-inch drop tine, and I remember being like, "That's the first drop tine I've ever seen."
Yeah, that's the first one I ever shot too.
Yeah.
But and there, that one had happened to work out. That was my target buck. But he had the frame of them, and like I said, you're normally happy regardless of what it ends up being based off the frame. That one ended up being my target buck, and I didn't positively identify it was until he was on the ground.
Well, that deer though, like at that time in 2005. Like, he was 137 and an eighth, if I remember right, from a measurement standpoint. But at that time, that was like a 170. Like, just huge. It was a couple of years after the antler restrictions came, and it's still a really big deer. I'm not saying it's not, but it's tougher to misidentify something that's that caliber coming through. He just had a wall of tines, just tall, not super wide, but just super good deer. But I remember that because you had that. You still have the picture hanging on the beer fridge here behind us. The flash camera photo of him.
Yeah, that was the only trail cam photo I had of him.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. Was that? No, was that SD card at that time, or is that when you had to go get it developed still? No, that would still be developed.
Yeah, I was going to get it developed. Yeah. I mean, if the SD cards were out, I didn't have one at that time.
Yeah.
But, to your point, if you suspect that there could be lockdown, and I wouldn't hesitate to go in after them if conditions are right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at that day, too, the wind was probably – I like it when the wind speeds up a little bit, between like 8 and 10. Nothing crazy, but enough to maybe – especially if it is a little dry. If it isn't a rainy day. There wasn't a rainy day that day. But the wind speed was up enough that just me creeping, it covered a lot of that up. But then when I intentionally bust stuff, he was able to hear it over the wind, too.
Right.
Yeah. What other conditions would you consider like ideal that you would consider going on the ground?
Well,
you said windy or rainy mostly.
Windy and rainy. Yeah, for sure. Because otherwise, I think they can detect a human creeping through.
Yeah.
That's the best conditions.
Have you ever used a decoy on the ground?
I've tried, but that's just been recent. It's probably about 3 years ago when I last tried it. But it just seems like it's in the way.
Yeah. It'd be hard in the thick stuff.
Yeah.
Like I can see it like in the open stuff in like Kansas and those open areas where people decoy a lot on the ground. But it'd be hard going through a clear.
It seems like it makes more noise with the material rubbing on the branches.
Yeah.
Because I did pick up one last year that mounts on the front of your bow to shoot through. Mm-hmm. And I took it out one time and I didn't, like I said, it just. My style, when I did go through the one clear cut, it just seemed like it made more noise. Where I agree 100%. If it was more open, I think it could be very beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do any of you guys use decoys at all when it comes to hunting out of a tree?
I have one, but I might, if I'm struggling, I might pull it out, put it that way.
I've used them I won't say quite a bit. It's helped me. It's hurt me. I have both a buck decoy and a doe decoy. And the 1 year that it actually hurt me is I had both the buck and doe set out in front of me, and I could hear a buck grunting coming towards me, and the doe popped out, and I know she would have come right underneath me otherwise, but she pops out, and she seen the buck decoy. And went out around, and that buck followed her exactly. Which, I know 100% that she would have kept on coming. But I know she stopped. She locked eyes on that decoy and then bounced around. But other times when if I have the buck decoy out and a buck's cruising by himself, he sees that, he's coming after him. I had one rip one up in front of me. Well, it wasn't daylight yet, but I had one rip the decoy down and just thrash it in the gray light. It's just like, it's definitely conditional. Will I use them again? For sure.
And I remember from your setups that you've used a decoy, it tends to be in a spot where you can't see your shots are very, very tight, and you're trying to pull something into that, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Or if like you're hunting in a clear cut and you have a little opening and you want them to come out of that, just something to get a visual to pull them out. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I guess not 100%. I do use them on if I'm more an open too, just to try to give a visual to try to draw it over. But I think I have mixed feelings about them. Like I said, I'll definitely use them again.
Yeah.
Lately, I guess it depends on the time of the rut. If it's in that late first week of November, that second week of November, I probably won't set my buck decoy out because most likely there's going to be some chasing going on, and that doe is going to be, there's going to be a buck behind a hot doe. That last week of October, though, I'd set the buck decoy out just to get that buck that's cruising, looking for the does, and getting him to come over and want to do a fight. Throw some grunts at him.
Yeah. I remember when, going to a couple of your setups before when you've killed with using decoys. And then I remember the one, I think I might even have hunted that I remember you telling me about it. The one you had to keep resetting the decoy that was down that hemlock that was down that bottom. Was that what it was? It was that you had to walk down through, I remember you had to walk down this logging trail down this bottom and it was ways and you climbed up this tree and it was pretty tight.
Yeah.
That's where that was at when that one, that decoy. And I'd used them before. And then I have two. I have the small buck decoy and the doe decoy, the Montana decoys. And I let Johnny was having a tough season a few years ago. He decided, he heard you say it once about a decoy. He said, I need a decoy. You got one? So he went and used it. And I think I got like one of the legs back. But,
well, that setup that you're talking about, then that hemlock in the creek bottom, I killed. There was actually, that was November 1st. I killed a nice buck, a mature buck, and there was 3 or 4 bucks after one doe, and I had just the doe decoy set up in a small opening, and the chase went right through above me, and I'm grunting and trying to pull them off, and none of them were shooters. But then I heard a real deep grunt coming. So I just started redirecting my grunts, towards it and towards the decoy, and that buck come out, and the chase had already gone by me, and it seen that doe decoy and just started coming, and and then I ended up getting that one. But I do believe 100% it was due to the decoy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Last thing, and we'll wrap this one up. But calling, any of you guys do calling?
Yep, I call.
Okay, what's your call? What's your calling like?
I'm usually a grunt or a doe bleat, and I don't necessarily have I have no system. I kind of just do
whatever feels right.
Yeah, whatever feels right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like doing any sort of like sequences, like you're creating or are you just like
nope.
grunt?
I just grunt. Every once in a while from first light to lunchtime, I might grunt 5 different times blindly, and if I see something coming by or hear something coming by that's not gonna already come into a shooting lane, I'll try and use a grunt or a doe bleat to get it closer. And there's no system. It's just one or the other.
Okay, Uncle Mike.
Yeah, I grunt too. About all I do. I don't bleat very much, but if I'm on if I actually have visuals of does, I won't grunt unless I see a buck, and if it's doing something it's not going to come when I want to shoot. If I want to try to turn it my way, then I'll try to grunt. But if I have does by me, I typically, what more could you want? You got them,
yeah.
So I'll stay quiet. My theory is too, if the buck's in a, if I don't see it, and if he hears me, he might come downwind of me and pick me off, Yep. So I'd rather we'll just wait it out, see how it plays out. Then when it's in a good spot, grunt to him and try to call him in.
Okay.
But then, and say I'm on other spots, I'll just grunt every so often. Depends on, as the rut's heating up, I'll get more aggressive, and just grunt more, so.
Yeah, and like you said, it depends on the setup too. If there's a good spot for them to circle downwind where you can't see them or have it might be less likely to do
I feel a lot of bucks will actually come in, but they won't snort. They'll smell you and they'll be gone, and you don't even know it.
Yep.
I think that happens a lot too. So.
Yeah. Dad.
I do a lot of calling. I mean, not a lot, but I just about every set during the rut I call. It may be every 20 minutes. It might be every 10 minutes. Might be once an hour. Depends on how I'm feeling that day. Just trying to read the situation, I guess. Mm-hmm. But to your point with the does, the year when I shot stickers, I heard some deep grunting going on in the chase. He was on some does, and I just started grunting and bleating. And all of a sudden, I see these deer big body deer coming at me, and I got ready, and here was the doe, a big doe, and then there was 2 yearlings behind her. But I 100% believe that my calling brought them over my way, right. And they went across, and then he followed them out. He was out about 50, 60 yards, no shot opportunity at all, and they kind of went over here and out of my life there, for at least I thought. And then I started doing some more calling. And all of a sudden, here come that doe group right in front of me at 30 yards, 35 yards, and he was following them. And then after the shot, I grunted because I wasn't sure. I just wanted to calm them down. I didn't know. I thought I hit back further than I did, and that being a perfect shot. But so I started grunting right away to calm them down, and all of a sudden, once again, I see a big body coming through. I'm thinking, I'm going to get it, because I didn't know if I missed it that time, and because he kind of blacked out. And he's coming, and here's the mother and the 2 yearlings, and they stood by me for, I bet you, 20 minutes. at 10 yards. They were kind of looking back too, waiting for that.
It's definitely hot doe.
Yeah, sure. So I've not called because doe have been in front of me, especially when there's no buck. You're right. I'll just wait it out. But I do a lot of blind calling. And if there's a chase going on, I'm grunting. I'm trying to pull them bucks. Especially if they lose the doe, or if there's one trailing behind like this, that mature buck I killed that I told you the story about. He was kind of trailing behind, and he was trying to short circuit and go into the noise, and then he locked eyes on my decoy and come right to me.
I was gonna say that the whole chasing thing and them. How many times do you see that where they lose the doe as they come out? I mean, last year it happened that time when my bow was on the ground, Thomas was on the ground. That deer came out. That was a giant deer, and he was right on her, but came out of the clear cut. She cut this way. He came out and didn't know which way to go, and then ended up coming right at us. Just I didn't have my bow, with me, but he's kind of grunting coming through. I think it's very situational when it comes to calling. I do a lot of blind grunting too, which I learned that from you a lot is blind grunting, but it's very situational. Like you said, if there's a spot where I feel like either they can pinpoint it's coming from the tree right there, I'm not as apt to do it. But if I'm in like a thick spot and I'm sitting on a creek bottom, I know my wind's going, my thermals are falling down the water, and I'm coming through, I can't really hear very well. They could be 60 yards out and I can't see them. I'm going to call a little bit more and try to, and I do some chasing sequences too of, doe bleating and then grunts falling up, burp, 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 coming through. But yeah, that's what I got to show you, Dad. I haven't showed you yet. I got a new grunt call because I like deeper sounding grunts. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know. I just always like a deeper sounding grunt. And I think the one I had forever is a flex tone or a mad growl.
You had flex tone, and I think you had it might have been a mad growl. Or something.
I think maybe the mad growl is the one that I've used. You have the flex tone one that had looks like an antler kind of for a while, and I like both those. The sounds of them, they've been really good, and I've had a couple of call companies, because I've talked about grunting on here before, reach out and be like, hey, we try our calls, and I just haven't been a fan. But there's one in Pennsylvania called Cluck calls, and the guy actually I met him, and he's like, tell me what you think. He's like, no obligations, just tell me what you think. And he had one it's a grunt bleat where you inhale, it's a bleat, and you grunt, and it's a grunt, but you can moderate the tone from deep to a little bit lighter. And I like that a lot. And actually, I liked it enough where the only thing I haven't tested with yet, but he tells me, and I do trust him, that it works good when it gets cold, because sometimes they freeze up a little bit. But I asked him, I was like, hey, can I sell these on my website? Because they sound so good. But they're called the Cluck Rut Camp, I believe it is. It's the deeper sounding one, but it's pretty good. I haven't showed you it yet, but I've been practicing with it because I've never used one that does the inhale with the bleat. So that's taken me a little bit to be able to do it. But it's like heavy rubber versus like it's got the expandable tube, which I typically didn't like those ones as much, but it's like a heavier rubber like you'd see on the growl or the those other ones. But I don't know. I've always liked the deeper tone. The whole point of saying that was I like a deeper tone to a grunt versus the other tubes that you see with like the thin plastic, accordion style that just, I don't know, they just don't sound as good to me. But yeah.
One thing that when you are calling, especially with a grunt, direct your call to your shooting lanes. I've made a mistake over the years where I call behind a tree and I don't have a shot back there, and doesn't that buck circle? I mean, just it's just like a turkey. They know exactly where you're at.
Yeah,
they can pinpoint you exactly where you're at, and
that's a good.
So I try to call now and direct it towards my shooting lanes, and they may still want to circle downwind, but maybe not as far, and you get an opportunity on it.
Good tip.
That is a good tip because I always do it. I try to do it behind the tree sometimes. I hope that they don't know I'm in a tree.
Well, yeah, and more now I'm kind of directing it down towards the ground.
Yeah.
Instead of, so it doesn't sound like, he's up in that tree.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll wrap this one up, but I appreciate you guys coming on and talking. I mean, it's an incredible time of year here, so I don't know. There's a lot of good days ahead, and who knows? Maybe a few of you might be tagged out before this episode even comes out. So we'll.
Hey, who's next?
Who's next?
Who's next?
Any bets?
No.
Playing Mason.
No, I was going to say one of these two.
I'm thinking.
we got to work this week.
Yeah, we do.
I'm thinking Uncle Mike just because he's very consistent.
If we're looking at stats.
Yeah, if we're looking at straight stats, Uncle Mike, it's like every time it's like, oh, October 28th, Uncle Mike texts, he's got a buck down. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Mason's going to kill a deer 100%. It's going to be another big deer. Yeah. But I have a feeling based on this year, Mason is struggling a little more than usual. But I think it's going to be a later. I think it's going to be a mid-November. I think it's a mid-November shot. I think, Dad, you're going to be earlier this year. I don't know what the date is, but you've had a couple years that have extended past normal for you. So I think this is your year. You're going to be a little bit
November
earlier.
3rd.
Well, I've usually screwed up more than not lately. That's the relearning process. So hopefully I don't mess it up.
Yeah, I think
I definitely have my encounters. I just got to capitalize.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think you're going to be – that's the thing. Uncle Mike's first, then Dad. Those two might be interchangeable there. Mason, I'm sorry, you're going to be a little later.
I think so, too.
It's going to be a hammer, don't get me wrong, but it's going to be a little later. But everyone listening, thanks for listening. Good luck. Be safe, and enjoy it. It only comes around once a year. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Hey, guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.